Friends and patriots, welcome and good evening to you. My name is Ajuri Ngelale, and I come to you from the nation's capital. This is Eagle Eye. On this edition of the program, we go deep into matters concerning Nigeria's fight against climate change and associated vices threatening the nation's future food production, social stability, and plans to uplift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty over the next 10 years, as we seek first-hand information following President Muhammadu Buhari's recent trip to Abidjan to attend the 15th session of the Conference of the Parties, COP15, of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. This and other matters are on the table as we conclude our exclusive interview with the Honorable Minister of Environment, Barrister Mohammed Hassan Abdullahi, on this edition of Eagle Eye. Without further ado, let's head to the nation's federal capital territory. A crucial ECOWAS meeting of regional environment ministers is holding virtually this morning, and it weighs heavily on the mind of the Honorable Minister of Environment as he engages with King Alfred Diete Spieth on his way out of Port Harcourt. Entering the aircraft, he provides detailed instructions ahead of his arrival in Abuja. Now on the ground, and moving swiftly to meet up with the meeting's commencement concerning critical matters ahead of COP15 in Abidjan. The minister wastes no time in rushing to his desk.
Call Halima. She's
yes,
online.
Yes, sir. She's attending the meeting.
Okay.
Days later, President Muhammadu Buhari leads the Nigerian delegation to COP15 as it begins in Abidjan.
This is indeed a development. Thank you, Your Excellency.
For the Pan-African Great Green Wall.
Here at COP15 in Abidjan, President Muhammadu Buhari, in his capacity as the president of the Pan-African Great Green Wall of the Sahel Initiative,
in a transparent manner,
has implored the international community to actuate its standing $19 billion pledge to the PAGGW and trigger the process for accessing the pledged funds for regional land restoration and tree planting, and investments in small and medium-sized farms, as well as support to smallholder farmers and the development of climate-resilient infrastructure. The Lake Chad Basin has shrunk from its 20,000 square kilometers capacity in 1972 to less than 2,000 square kilometers capacity presently, with massive socio-economic impact on the nations of the region. The president noted that uplifting the 1.3 billion people inhabiting the continent would require the completion of the $16 billion Lake Chad replenishment project, which would construct a new 2,400-kilometer navigable channel from the Congo Basin's Ubangui River into the Lake Chad. The president further galvanized the support of his colleague heads of state to the cause with the new funds soon to be made available, as it would transform the security dynamic of the Lake Chad member states, all while creating new economic opportunities for the people of the region. Honorable Minister, President Muhammadu Buhari has been very ambitious with respect to Nigeria's contribution to the global fight against climate change. We know that this has been a major focus of his administration, and one of the major contributions he has made publicly, a pledge he made to the international community was in December 2020 when he informed COP24, the gathering there, that Nigeria would plant 25 million trees over the succeeding 5 years. As it is today, we know that this administration has been able to plant well over 6 million trees across the country in line with that projection. What can you tell Nigerians about efforts that are being made by this administration to really reverse the terrible trend of desertification, particularly in the northern part of the country?
The objectives and the target given by the president of 25 million trees in 5 years, we're actually on course. Now, don't forget that we have a challenge where 2 years of our lives have been taken off by COVID. So that has impacted very, very negatively in our efforts, towards planting those trees. However, with Nigeria and the global community, gradually getting out of COVID, we have now refocused our energy, towards the tree planting activities, and so far we are working to start by this season, to continue rather by this rainy season, to plant between 2 to 5 million trees this year. Now, that will be done through a coordinated tree planting campaign where the states will be involved. So the president is scheduled to launch the tree planting campaign for this year, possibly in June, in collaboration with the state governors, who also in turn go back home, go to their home states and plant additional trees. They also in turn direct chairman of local governments to also plant additional trees. So it will be done simultaneously across the 36 states and Abuja and the 774 local governments across the country. So we are thinking of planting this year alone between 2 to 5 million trees. So we are quite on course. And don't also forget that last year in December 2021, Mr. President was elected the president of Conference of Heads of States and Governments of the Pan-African Great Green Wall Project agency. So that also puts so much responsibility on the president to coordinate this global tree planting campaign, across the member states of the Great Green Wall. So we are quite on course. The pledge to the international community is being executed, and we'll do the best we can, and we are anchoring that. The president is also due to meet with select member states of the Pan-African Great Green Wall Project agency, to also re-strategize on the action plan for this year in terms of the tree planting campaign. But what I want to tell you is that the PAGGW strategy in terms of mitigation of desertification and dry land remediation is to leverage on what we call the GGW accelerator, which is essentially a mechanism to access funding from global partners to support building a belt through the Sahel of of trees that can break the advance, and effect of desert encroachment. Now, the strategy is just to go beyond tree planting. It is supposed to go to address the issue of land remediation, to make land accessible or cultivatable for farmers. The essence is to support smallholder farmers to recover land that is hitherto uncultivatable, and then to ensure that he plants for the purposes of, one, employment, two, economic advancement, self-economic advancement, and then three, some level of employment, and engaging the smallholder farmer. That program also, tries to also support giving communities access to water, and then also doing some level of work to recover our watersheds. So it's a holistic program that Mr. President is keeping faith with, and we hope and are focused on delivering on that.
The difference in many cases between President Muhammadu Buhari and many of his predecessors is the fact that he does not go to global conferences simply making pledges, but that he's a man of action, that he has been able to institute action on those pledges that he has made to the international community. Interestingly, I remember during COVID when he put in place the Special Public Works Program, a major part of the 774,000 young people, 1,000 per local government area being put to work across the country, one of the components was tree planting. And we're now aware, Honorable Minister, that moving forward now, the President has now, of course, signed into law the National Climate Change Bill.
Well, to be honest with you, I have been able to go through the act, but there seems to be a lot of inconsistencies. So what we're doing is we have arranged and assembled a team to examine, the act, the implications of the act on Nigeria's quest to fight GHG emissions, and of course how we can live with the impact, or be adaptable to the impact of adapt to the impact of this climate change. So as it is now, it will be too early for me to make assessment until I have this full briefing and a robust discussion, on what should be our next steps. But yes, it's good that we have a climate change act in place. It is good for the country, but implementation has been a problem because of the inconsistencies we've observed when I came on board. So we're trying to see how we can resolve those inconsistencies and ensure that we work with the relevant stakeholders in the National Assembly, the Ministry of Justice, and ensure that those areas that are inconsistent, that shows some impracticability, are sorted out so that we can have the requisite amendment that we can take off.
Honorable Minister, many Nigerians have, looked at the activities of the National Environmental Standards and Regulatory Enforcement Agency, NESRIA, and have really tried to see whether or not they are getting the value for their money in terms of the output of that particular organization. When you look at the kind of vehicles that we have on our roads, emitting black smoke, huge plumes of smoke from outdated vehicles that really shouldn't be on the roads, whether or not they're partnering with institutions like the FRSC, and whether or not they're dealing with large industry as well in terms of these kinds of exorbitant emissions that we see from certain industries with the lack of regulatory enforcement. What would you tell Nigerians about what the ministry is able to do to try and really tighten up on environmental standards enforcement in the country, and what other measures you think can be put in place to deal with other environmental threats in the country?
There are interagency collaboration, between NESRIA and respective agencies that have to do with either pollution or air pollution or water pollution or emissions we ensure that we liaise with relevant agencies to ensure that there's a collaborative effort in terms of enforcement. Now, that being said, I think I have a very great concern about waste management. It's something that has given me very sleepless night when I became the Minister of Environment, particularly the effect of polythene waste on our environment. So we're trying to look at that, whether we can bring a very strong policy in collaboration with the state. Don't forget we're a federation. Unfortunately, that has its own setbacks. You can't enforce policies across the states without the buy-in of the governors of those states. So we're trying to see whether we can migrate to using paper bags, rather than using polythene bags and polythene bags or things or whatever, in terms of our human activities. So we are concerned at the effect it has on our environment. We are concerned that our environment is being polluted more by polythene products, So it's something I'm looking at, and I hope that I'll have the buy-in of most stakeholders to ensure that we'll begin a phased withdrawal from usage of such products.
Honorable Minister, it was not lost on me as we traveled through River State, seeing the level of waste on the streets, on the roadsides, how dirty the Garden City has become, and even the rural communities in the state, how things are currently managed as it relates to waste management. It's a major problem. How do we ensure, as a federal government, that we can get the states to key in? Because of course the states have waste management agencies. Some of them are manned by political appointees who may not be technocrats in that field. What can we do to ensure or to incentivize, or whatever the case may be, these state waste management agencies to do their jobs and to do their jobs properly?
Well, okay, that is why we always have this Council on Environment. It's a good vehicle to drive down some policies through the states, because they are also involved in policy making, and they bring memos. We consider them across different states. So one vehicle we can use actually is the Council of Environment, where we can engage the states and then also see how we can support them in terms of not only capacity development, but they can also leverage on our expertise. And but we are constrained about funding, because virtually every state, I mentioned earlier, has some line of funding from the federation account, which is dedicated to environment, under ecological funding. So it's always very difficult to begin to be like a Father Christmas to everyone, because they have funds themselves. Now, unfortunately, again, we are constrained to intervene in terms of appointments of experts at the local level, at the state level, because that's within the prerogative of the state governor. So there's nothing we can do about that, only that we can work with whoever is there to ensure that there's this collaborative effort in delivering, on activities that relate to environment.
Honorable Minister, we're aware that, of course, erosion has been an issue in particular hotspots in the country. We think of course, the southeast geopolitical zone. Some parts of the south in particular have been quite severely impacted. What would you tell Nigerians about what the Federal Ministry of Environment is doing in conjunction with the states with respect to really reversing the trend of this huge quantum of land mass that is now being threatened by erosion and a lack of erosion management in the country over decades now?
Erosion management has a number of players. There are both the local and national players. Now, at the national level, yes, the focal point office is the Ministry of Environment, but we also have the Ecological Project Office that also does some mitigation work in terms of erosion control across the states. What we do in the ministry is we get complaints from various states, and then so we send a team to assess, and where possible we intervene. In most cases we intervene independently to ensure that we do some erosion control mechanism to stop land degradation, or in most cases. Like I know we've intervened a number of times in the southeastern states and the south-south, particularly Imo, Anambra, Enugu, and Akwa Ibom states. Now, don't forget, we also have the NUMA program. It's a World Bank supported project, and which examines virtually these kind of challenges. To some extent, we have been able to remediate such areas where there are erosion, challenges. Yeah, so we are on it, and part of our focus for this year also is to see how we can intervene in erosion endemic states of the Southeast, so that we can also support them. And then, of course, but don't forget also that in the portfolio for funding of erosion matters, the states also have been paid their chunk, of what they should do, in terms of ecological challenges. But what the federal government just does is to support them, and we'll continue to do that.
I often say this, but so many times it's true, where you have so many underreported activities of the federal government across sectors. I think one of them, under the Federal Ministry of Environment, is the fact that you have over 2,000 sites right now across this country where erosion management activities are taking place. But what's really interesting, and I would like to get more insight into this, is under President Muhammadu Buhari, this ministry has really become more proactive rather than reactive, in the sense that I understand that in about 19 states across the Federation that you've been able to establish these early warning flood systems. Can you give us some insight into that?
You see, government is collaborative. Now, in terms of the early warning system, there are a number of offices that are involved. The Ministry of Agriculture is involved. The Aviation Ministry is also involved. Government consists of so many offices, and what is needed actually is harmonization when it comes to policy and advisory services. So we collaborate with NIMET and the aviation. We also collaborate with Ministry of Agriculture, and of course we also collaborate with the Ministry for Science, Technology and Innovation, because we also get a lot of information from NASDA, National Space Agency. So we leverage on all this, and then collaborate, and then assess the situation, and then give appropriate advisory to various state and local governments. So it is about being proactive. Hitherto there was no such kind of collaboration, so everybody operates in the silos. We operate in silos, and so you see how about that advisory services, to agencies of government. But now, with this collaboration, what we do is we have a synchronized and harmonized advisory that is factual and that is more accurate and is given to states, so that they can be alerted as to the possibility, of prevailing dangers. But if they are able to take several actions before then we minimize to a large extent the extent of damage to their property and, of course, to the system itself and to their land. So, as it is today, we have sufficiently provided notices and advisories to several communities that there is likelihood of flood, and there is the likelihood of, in the far north, of heavy sandstorms, that could devastate, their households and farmlands. So yes, so to a large extent, this government under the Buhari administration has been very proactive, and that is how it should be.
Share your thoughts and constructive comments with us on the Eagle Eye Facebook and Instagram page. As always, I have enjoyed this time with you, and I thank you for your viewership. I look forward to your company as I host you once again next week at this same time on this network. Until next time, may God Almighty go with you, and as eagles, may we all soar and lift our nation high as we do.